We turn the page to infrastructure resilience. What happens when ground-based infrastructure fails? Maybe it's disrupted. Maybe it isn't even destroyed, it's disrupted. And in fact, just as an aside, I am working with the German Marshall Fund to launch a task force on just that, on how you, based on lessons learned in Ukraine, because it's happened in Ukraine, how do you prepare Europe for the unthinkable? To prepare civil protection, civil defense. Any case, that's just an aside, and what I want to do is invite Robert Ade, who is with the Enterprise Estonia, Industry Liaison Officer at the CERN, Nuclear Accelerator. He's in the Estonian Space Office, over a decade working with R&D. Robert, please. A big hand to Robert, please. So Robert, it's not just a theoretical thing. It happens, doesn't it? Disrupting infrastructure, and how can space fill that gap?
It does happen. Are there also slides? Yes, there are. Thank you very much. It's so nice to see so many of you here. So, I work in the Estonian Space Office in Enterprise Estonia, so effectively I work for the government. Enterprise Estonia is an agency answering to the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications of Estonia. And in the Space Office, what we primarily do is we carry out the Estonian space policy. How do we switch the slides?
Oh, sorry. It's right behind you, sorry. Right there on the table.
So we carry out the Estonian space policy. We have a program for 2020 to 2027. We are preparing for the next one. Mostly we carry it out through our membership activities in the European Space Agency. I provide some statistics here, but one of the key parts here is that we have some dedicated areas which we are more interested in than others. We do everything, but some areas get priority. I would particularly want to highlight cybersecurity here, but also AI and robotics and other things. We have been a member state since 2015. We have invested into ESA-led projects something like 50 million euros, and you see that for the next 3 years we invest 10 million a year. So we are accelerating in the pace of our investment. This corresponds by and large also with the other activities of other member states in the European Space Agency. We have garnered quite a community of companies, over 100, that have worked with ESA at this point. And based on our statistics, every euro we have put into ESA contracts generates another 3 of additional economic activity. And I use an old slide here with a lot of logos, just to show that there's different areas we have worked in, and there are different companies there. Some of them have a very interesting story, and I would particularly again like to highlight too the area of Earth observation, which is the second largest. Earth observation is slightly strange because you do not need a satellite to do space-related things. And then there's a company called Skeleton Technologies, which started from space, but now is doing something big. So how do you get from just an idea to space? There's a number of avenues available for you. There's 3 areas you can start from. One of them is ground to space, which is what everyone thinks about when you think about space. That's launches, that's rockets, that's satellites, everything that you send up into orbit. Then there's ground-related things, which is big antennas, big data centers, places where you crunch the numbers and send the information around. And then there's space to ground, mainly information. This is how you can do Earth observation. You do not need your own satellite, but you can find information somewhere to generate it into something that you can use for something else. If you do anything within AI or electronics or something that you can use in any stage of this architecture, where first you send something to space, do something, observe something, take the information and generate it into something useful, you have a place in space, and there are some easy entry points available for you. One of the particular ones is the ESA Business Incubator. In Estonia, we started one in 2017. It's been slightly strangely successful. There's been 39 companies that went through it. We have only lost 2. Only 2 have died. All the other ones are still alive. If you look at the statistics, the equity-free funding they've handed out is below 2 million, but the additional funding they've raised is almost 100 at this point. We have a BIC in Latvia. There's an ESA BIC in Latvia, opened in 2024. I have no reason to believe it will be any less successful than the Estonian one. So if you're an investor looking for startups to invest into, pay attention, take a look at the startups they're in. But from a public sector perspective, if you look at the labor taxes and the high-value employment positions generated, this is an absolute success. But to take a step back, so if you think about satellites, what does a satellite do? What kind of information can you get? A satellite is a relatively simple object. It can, in human terms, listen, it can talk, it can see. It can also do a little bit of maths, but only a little bit, because it's usually constrained by power demand. You know some of the services, some of them you use every day. If you use a Bolt, you're actually using GPS, because that's how the Bolt taxi finds you. Galileo is the European version of it. Intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Technically, this involves weather monitoring, but also if you want to see what ships are doing on fisheries, you can do that. There's other patterns. If you want to see how traffic changes in an area, if you install a new road or close one, or just generally observe a trend, you can do this. You can employ a lot of AI and read a lot of information. There is a term here, why I'm going through this point by point, hyperspectral imaging. This is kind of a technical term. I'm not sure everyone knows what this is. So if you're looking at these pictures, you see a number of pixels. They are blue, red, and green. This is basically hyperspectral imaging, but typically in space it just means you have a lot more colors you're looking into. And RF mapping, which means radio frequency, so anything that has an antenna, a phone, something else. You can see from space where transmissions are being sent and sometimes also where they're accepted. And of course, communication links. The picture I put here is S-Cube-1, which was launched a number of years ago, 2013, I think, and it's already dead, but it's just as an illustration that it has other functions as well. It's a scientific satellite, but it does have these 3 characteristics that are basic for every satellite. It talks, it listens, it does some numbers, and transmits some information. Now, since you can do...
Robert, can you back up to the previous slide again?
Yes.
The thing about dark vessel detection, does that have anything to do with killer satellites or something like that? Or
I'll get there in a second.
you will. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Teaser.
in fact, this is on this slide. Thank you for pointing it out. So space is inherently dual use because you can observe something quite basic. You get information. You can use this information for various things. But often the satellite information itself isn't useful on its own. You want to combine it with something else to calculate what's actually interesting. So one of the examples here is the AIS system. If you've ever gone to the page of marinetraffic.com or .org, I don't remember which one, you see ship positions, transponders from ships. Technically, on a ship, you can turn these off, and then you just disappear from radar. I mean, okay, you don't actually disappear from primary radar, but you disappear from the map.
I see, yeah.
And
actual ships, these are ships.
Actual ships,
yeah,
dark vessels.
Yeah.
You become a dark vessel, but if you have a synthetic aperture radar reading of the area, and you see that there's a ship, but there's no transponder code for it, then you can just go back in time and see when it last transmitted its location and name. And then you can calculate what it is, and then you can start figuring out what it's doing there. Is it doing illegal fishing? Is it trying to smuggle something? Is it one of the shadow fleet taking oil or trying to bypass insurance regulations?
There's lots of those.
Yes. There's other versions of this as well. I brought the example here of the ICEYE system because this is a characteristic case. They have a large constellation of synthetic aperture radar satellites. These are commonly used to monitor ice flow, also to see how flooding evolves in a situation. but the Ukrainians have also used it for detecting where targets is. So synthetic aperture radar can see through clouds. And in some areas, yeah, this particular image has a resolution of 25 by 25 centimeters and 2 coordinate axes, but the third one you can actually measure extremely finely because you can do interferometry, and then you can get topology changes of something like 1 or 2 millimeters. So you can see a lot of things in space. You can, of course, also take a look at search and rescue operations. If you look at where someone's phone is in the forest and they're lost and they don't know where to go, you can detect that from space, but you can also detect other guys who maybe are not lost but are still in the forest and are trying to stay there so that no one finds them. And hyperspectral imaging we basically talked about, but you can see through camouflage, and sometimes you can detect certain chemicals. Since space is inherently dual use, it means that sometimes it's targeted. Space itself is targeted. You try to affect a satellite to, in a military conflict, to create chaos or avoid some information from getting where it should get to. There's a number of ways to do this. If you look at positioning, GPS, then currently here it's jammed. I took a flight into Riga yesterday from Paris, and as long as I was across Germany or France, I could track my GPS position on the plane. And then when I entered the airspace above the Baltic Sea, it disappeared. I couldn't get a lock anymore. There's a more serious case in Estonia because there's the Finnair flights that went into Tartu in southeast Estonia. One of the landing procedures required that the plane has a lock on its GPS location. And since that went away due to jamming, then they had to turn back to Helsinki. This happened a number of times. Now they've changed the technical setup, they've changed the procedure, but it's still something that affects the planes every day. You can also dazzle cameras on space assets. You basically shine a laser towards the satellite. It will usually not destroy the satellite or the sensor, but it will mess up the readings. So if there's a fire occurring somewhere in the forest, then you lose temporarily the ability to monitor what's exactly happening. And telecommunication is obvious because you just lose everything because someone else is shouting on the same wavelength and you just don't hear anything. The noise is too much to determine what the signal was. You get secondary effects then if space is disrupted. There's an example I brought here from Ukraine. So a few hours before Russia started their invasion of Ukraine, the KA-SAT SATCOM system owned and operated by Viasat went offline in most of Europe. They lost something like 30,000 modems that enable you to communicate with the satellite. Turns out the satellite itself was fine. But the problem was that one of the ground stations in Italy was the subject of a cyber attack. And the ground station was hacked and was instructed to push malware onto the modems. A malicious update that basically bricked all the modems. And the attack is largely attributed to Russian intelligence, although I haven't seen any article confirming that for sure. But it would make sense given the timing. But if it was an intentional cyber attack, then it still affected a lot of Europe. Something like 6,000 wind turbines lost their backup remote monitoring capability. That's a power generation volume of 11 gigawatts. If you don't know what that means, that's approximately 11 or 12 times what Latvia consumes on average. You can, of course, imagine other scenarios where some data links are just hijacked or jammed or spoofed, and then people go to the wrong places, people have difficulty finding out where they are. You lose ability to monitor some dynamic situations. Someone can use a ship to bypass border controls or do some smuggling because you can't see it from space anymore. So the point of this slide is to say that space itself is targeted a lot as well. You cannot rely just on space most of the time because it can also be affected. But as a backup and alternative, it has its role. It's largely limited to the things you can do from space, the information you can generate from space. Either you transmit information or you observe something and send the information back. The example here is a ship, Eagle S. It broke a powered cable. It broke also 3 optical cables, and then it was escorted away by the Finnish military. Even if this was accidental, then the case is still that fiber optic cables get damaged a lot. The other areas that can get damaged are navigation and timing infrastructure. You can determine your own location based off of telephone masts. Cameras that you put on borders, these can be damaged sometimes. And of course 5G, 4G data networks.
Robert, just a few more.
I have 2
seconds.
slides. I'll finish in a sec.
Thank you.
But there are other areas. So there's definitely hybrid activity that causes these things. There's also natural disasters. I brought 3 examples here. One is a hurricane in the US. So a Hurricane Ian hit Florida. Entire counties lost a lot of their communication and power infrastructure. Companies came together, created satellite-based data hubs so that data connectivity was restored. A volcanic eruption severed the only data cable connecting the island of Tonga to Fiji, and by that the rest of the world. Now they are reportedly considering Starlink as one of their go-forward connections to the world. And then an earthquake destroyed a large part of Turkey and Syria, where not only was data communication used, but also, since it wasn't clear which roads can be used, they used synthetic aperture radar observations just to see how to guide logistics and help where they needed to go. So, final notes. You can use space as an alternative, but usually you can't rely just on space alone, except in certain cases like you're in the North Pole or somewhere where you have tundra or basically ice-based conditions, because there you just can't have a good alternative. It can primarily help with communication and information. If you're a company, again, I'd like to reiterate, look into what ESA does. If you can go to an ESA-related project, check out ESA-BIC. It's an easy way of getting some equity-free funding. If you're an investor, check out the startups and the ESA-BICs. It seems to be working for us so far. It probably is working for Latvia. And final thing, advertisement. Come and meet the Estonian space community in Tallinn at the end of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. It's great to hear. Dozens of startups, lots of projects going on. That's really great to hear. Thank you very much. Let's stay in space. How about that?